Good morning. Hello, and welcome to the today's session, the last day of the week. We would love to hear from you after today's presentation. So, without any further ado, I invite Dr. Ruchi Saxena to welcome our speaker. Dr. Ruchi, please over to you.
Namaskar and a very good morning to everyone. Professor Animesh, Jain is an extremely busy doctor and had to really squeeze time out of his busy schedule for us today. Thank you so much, sir, for taking time out for us. And Dr. Animesh Jain, I would not delay further and go ahead with his CV. Dr. Animesh Jain is the former head and currently a professor in the Department of Community Medicine at Kasturba Medical College, Bangalore, which is a constituent college institution of Manipal Academy of Higher Education. He is the fellow of Foundation of Advancement of International Education and Research, US, and is the faculty at the Regional Institute, Coimbatore. He heads the UNESCO chair in bioethics and is also the deputy convener of medical education unit at Kasturba Medical College, Mangalore. Oh my God, he wears too many hats. Hats off to you, sir. You really look after so much of administrative work. Professor Jain's efforts as an educator are tremendous and tireless. He has been, and for this, he has been awarded for the best innovative practice in teaching and training in community medicine in 2019 at Simla. The Manyata Award again in 2019 for Innovation, Teddy Bear Clinic for Children in Bangalore. He is an avid researcher and has published several papers in national and international journals. And he has also contributed a book chapter in a book on community medicine. He is the editor of Annals of Community Health and Web Medical Med Central, and also the founding editor of the Manipal Journal of Medicine. With these few words, I welcome Professor Animesh Jain to this virtual platform to give us solutions on educational research and opportunities. Welcome, Dr. Jain.
Namaskar. Good morning, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ruchi, ma'am, for that introduction. And thank you to the organizers, Dr. Seema and others. It's a pleasure and honor. And let's get going. Well, I'm reminded of a story which happened in around 90s. There was this student in class 9th. As in most schools, it happens that there was this tradition of reading out the news headlines in front of the school assembly. And that day was this boy's turn. Now, this boy went on the stage. He was trembling from the head to toe. He was shaking. He was shivering. He was sweating. He could not utter the words properly. He was fumbling. However, whatever 3 to 5 minutes he had to spend and read out the headlines, he managed and he just came up. He felt very bad. He thought he could never do that. He found himself very challenged when it came to facing an audience. He thought public speaking was not his cup of tea. It was not his forte. It was not in his genes. It was not in his probably, plans for the future. But his teachers, his parents, they believed that he could do it. They encouraged him. His parents said, "Son, don't worry. This is just one failure. So what? You can do it. Let's try to work out How do we get over and how do we manage your stage fright? And they started supporting him and providing him with opportunities. Whenever there was an opportunity, they made sure that this boy was participating as far as possible, whether it was drama, debate, any other thing. And his teachers too. They supported him. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to tell you that this boy was from Jamshedpur, and this was none other than the speaker for you today, and that's me. From then to here, it's been a long journey, but a very fulfilling and satisfying one. It's not that I want to boast about me to start off with this, but what I'm just trying to say is it's possible, provided people believe in you and we believe in ourselves. And that was the belief that made it happen. Of course, there were hiccups. Of course, there were hurdles. But then people were supported. And that's what mattered. So from that day on, I've been progressing. And I shouldn't be saying at this age, but I haven't looked back. Every time an opportunity comes, I take it and I just go for it. Because I think every opportunity gives you a platform, gives you a stage in its own way to test yourself, to prove yourself, to better yourself. So that's what I'm trying to bring it to your notice. The belief. On the left hand side of your screen, or my left, are 4 boys. The cornermost on the leftmost is me with my principal, Mrs. Vijayam Kartha, who believed that I could do it. The right, you see the class picture. This was much later, of course, but this is the class picture. And bottom on the left, you can see my parents. Of course, I miss my dad, he's no more, but they believed. In the same continuation, let me also tell you one more brief story before I move forward. The same principle. When there was an opportunity to go for a moral rearmament camp, and we have a moral rearmament center in Panchgani in Maharashtra near Pune, and there was an opportunity to send 4 people, 4 students, not the same 4 which appear on your screen. So I was one among them. We were nominated with a faculty, with a teacher, and we didn't know, but then finally a letter came back saying that others are okay, but I had an issue with my age. I wasn't 16, and for that camp, a person had to be minimum 16 or more. The principal called me. We didn't know that. This I'm talking about 92 or so. The principal called me and she said, Animesh, there is a letter which they have written, the organizers have written, and since it's an international camp and people from everywhere are coming, they've written this. However, without asking you, I have written back to them and I've said that this boy is the most mature and I can vouch for him. If he cannot, I don't think anybody else. And she had written, she called me to her office, tell me, to inform me that. Think of me. I was so touched. Further, when I was accepted, I had a responsibility. I couldn't let her down. I had to uphold the faith, the belief that she had in me. And yes, we did. We did do that, and we came back and she had all praising letters from all around. So that's the belief for you, ladies and gentlemen. That's what belief can do for you. Ladies and gentlemen, today there is a similarity between you and me, you all, the audience who are joining us from different places. I do understand there would be some students also, but please understand, students, at one point in time, I was at your place. And today too, I consider myself as a student in many aspects, because we are all lifelong learners. We cannot be a know-all. The moment I believe The moment we stop learning, we stop growing. Our existence is just merely an existence and not something for development. So there's a similarity between us, you and me. And what is that? Most of you are teachers or parents, just like me. We all want our wards, our students, our children to do well, to grow, to bring glory, to do something for the country, for the society. And I'm sure that's something which we both share. Let me take you further, give you some perspective from my angle on educational research and the opportunities that we get. Well, let me tell you certain things that we have done. I belong to one of the premier medical institutions, medical college in the country, the Kasturba Medical College, Mangalore, a part of the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. Now, Manipal Group was the first one to set up a private medical institution in the country way back in 1953. Yes, in case you didn't know. That was an obscure place. People had not heard about it, but Dr. TMFI dared to dream and do it. I'm fortunate to have been educated here, and never in my wildest of dreams, this boy from a small town Jamshedpur who had come for his education in 95 to Mangalore ever thought that he would stay on here. Not just stay on, but would grow to become the first alumnus of this institution to head the Department of Community Medicine, being the 13th head. Of course, people consider 13 as unlucky. 13 was my lucky number. Now, let me tell you a few more things, what we did. We have a very strong culture of research in our institution. We actually promote research. We promote research among undergraduates. Now, we are proud to say that the way research is treated and promoted among medical undergraduates in our institution for the last 15 years or so that I have known, I don't think in any other institution this is done. Of course, now the institutions are waking up and doing that. We've been doing it for almost, I think, 18, 20 years, in last 15 years, very systematically and developing it further. We have a culture. Now, let me also tell you, so that people understand that, there are constraints, yes. There are people who would say that there is a defined curriculum. There is a prescribed curriculum and syllabus. But please understand, we also follow, and we are very much under the ambit of Medical Council of India. We are also governed by the rules and regulations of Medical Council of India. However, within that ambit, let me re-emphasize, there is enough scope for us to evaluate the whole syllabus, to further innovate and give something different. And I'll show you what we have been doing. We have a very strong research culture, as I said. Second year medical students in our institution, we group them into groups of 4 or 5 and allot to a faculty, and they do small time research right from the scratch. They identify a problem, they find the research question, they develop the research protocol by reviewing the literature, they present it to their peers and the faculty, they go through the ethics committee and the approval, look at all the ethical issues, and then finally they conduct the research. And then at the end of that, they present their findings again to peers and faculty, and this all happens in the posting of 1 month. Only during the morning postings in 1 month. Following this, they are given about a week or 10 days time to submit their final report. We took it further. We had been doing this. We also are proud to say that we are one of the highest number of short-term studentship awarded by the Indian Council of Medical Research. So we've been doing this research and student projects. However, we took it further. When I had to do a fellowship in medical education, the FAMER fellowship, I proposed this, that let's take this further, because these projects are done and we are not doing anything further. We are not, exposing it to the external world. So most of them are gathering dust, either in departments or in the library, or maybe with the people or the researcher or the faculty guides. So let's, what's called as scholarship in the Western parlance, we started doing scholarships. So I proposed that let's have students going for conferences and start publishing these also in journals. More than conferences, publish this, because that's how you share.
Sir, to disturb you,
Yes, ma'am.
please put yourself on the full screen because the screen is blank.
Yes, ma'am. I have intentionally blanked. Can you see it now?
Yeah. Okay. Then it's
Okay.
okay, sir.
Yeah,
Okay.
just thank you. Yeah. So, but please let me know in case there is a further this thing. Thank you for interrupting me. Right,
We wanted your face to be like on the full screen.
ma'am. It's not there.
No.
My video is on, as I know. Can you just see if you can pin me?
Uh,
I can see myself.
yeah, I can see. I can see you, but you have to share your picture on the screen. The screen is
Okay.
blank.
You're talking about the PowerPoint.
Yeah. No, not the PowerPoint. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
You put yourself on the screen.
One
Okay,
minute,
it's
ma'am.
okay, sir. It's okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. So what I was saying is, as I said, so further we took it further to make students publish, and that's a big thing. And we started doing this way back in 2010-11, and the whole process set in by say 2013-14. And when I took over as the head of department in 2015, we further encouraged. Now you might think that what's there for the students and why should they do it? Why should faculty invest their time? So that's what is something which you have to think and look about. Now we showed them that students, if they publish, of course, it's one good feeling. Second, many of them aspire to go abroad. Now, when they have this research on their CV, it obviously gives them extra brownie points. For the faculty involved, it gives them publication, it gives them opportunities, and it gives them encouragement, and it gives them good bonding and relationship. And of course, to highlight that they also address some of the issues through these small researches which the students do. For the institution is the number of publication, and for the university again same, and then it counts for the rankings. And now of course everybody is aware, but we started long back. So the process started long back, and so much so that in 2009 I was involved. I was rather entrusted by the then dean, Dr. Raghuveer, to be the organizing secretary for a medical conference for students, exclusively for students. And this was the first time a medical college in the country was attempting this. And we had 800 plus delegates, not just from India, but abroad as well, as far as from Bulgaria, Iran, Pakistan, US, Bangladesh, Nepal, everywhere. So we had quite a few, and that's what I'm showing. And this was done totally by students. That's the core team, mainly the students. So again, we believed that we could do it. Fall out of that, we formed a students body, and they kept on doing, and they also start discussing their cases, and they have a journal club virtually and things like that. Moving on, we started a research day. It's an annual event which is only for the students, whether they are postgraduate students, undergraduate students, PhD students, whoever. So they all have this research day where they can actually in-house present their research in the form of poster or orals depending on the selection. So it's reviewed by a committee, and what we do is it's a morning to evening event. So we also have 2 or 3 plenary sessions, and this time we added a workshop and things like that. Last year we added a new dimension by inviting a neighboring. We have a National Institute of Technology in Surathkal. So we invited people from there, and we tried to have bonding between medical and engineering, so that biotechnology. So lot of these kind of things, and we initiate this early among students so that they get into this. And these are all undergraduate students, mind you. Ma'am talked about this in my CV, so best innovative teaching and training practice. And this is what the whole thing, what we've done. That is students being initiated into research, asking them to publish and things like that. So this was a very competitive event which was started in 2018, 2019. I applied for it and then shortlisted among the top 6. And then I had to make a presentation in front of a jury, which comprised of big names. And then finally, this was the honor which was bestowed along with a check of 5,000 rupees at Shimla. Let me also tell you, we also get opportunities to innovate and train and educate. So this is another thing which we conceived in 2017. To our knowledge, best of our knowledge, this was the first time this was being done in, again, a medical institution for undergraduate students. So we conceived something known as a summer training with 4 modules. And this was a 4.5-day event. Students had to come to our institution from different places, spend 4.5 days. They could choose a module and they could go about building their skills in that, whether it was the clinical skills, diagnostics, research, or medicus operandi, that is about soft skills. This is medicus operandi. So we thought, with kind of current scenario changing and the perceptions of people changing, and we also realized that there were issues with doctor-patient relationship, the soft skills which are not being taught. So we included these things, and this was a module which we designed, one of the modules. So this you again see. Of course, we had challenges. This was a module which was very different from the conventional and the traditional. So obviously, we did not have many takers. Till almost the day before, people said we will cancel it because we had very few people, 4 or 5, and we finally had 7 or 8. And finally, on the day of the module, we had 12. We ran that module. He said, let's go ahead. It's okay. And those people will be our ambassadors for the next time. And that's how it went on. So 2018, we had the summer training. We again modified it. Many other things were added, including one which was only on operational skills, that is operating room skills, the green room, because we realized that students needed that as well. So again, there is an opportunity. We tap those, untouched areas, and we try to do that. And again, this is about dermatology, and on your right, how to suture, students being taught, and also on very low cost simulator equipment before they go on to other higher fidelity sim labs. So those kind of things. And this is last year's summer training, where the students again ran this, one of the modules, which was common. This was on your left is a bank robbery scene. And then on the right is a poisoning scene where a family has passed away after eating their dinner. So they were to investigate. Now, all these were opportunities created. And this was because the students were encouraged. So all this happened, and this happened by medical students in a medical college. And all this was very interactive with lots of interaction, fun, and then debrief. And this is again something I wanted to share. Another thing which happened is Ideathon. So we had hackathons, and now we started Ideathon. And Dr. Arun Shanbag, the Chief Innovation Officer who's seen addressing the students, so he started this and he said, let's do it for even the first MBBS. And we joined hands. We brought it to Mangalore and we did this. And the students were briefed and they were asked to identify a core problem in certain core areas which were given to them. And they had to come up with a solution. And they had to keep in mind about the end user. So if you see, this was the thing, end user, and it should meet the end users in their context. So it should actually address their needs. And how do they perceive the problem? That had to also be determined by user surveys, discovering the unexpected, reviewing literature, and coming out with a prototype solution, mainly by presentation. So this students presented, and if you see, they had different things to present. Some things I'm projecting. And so we had grouped them into teams which they chose, and then they presented. And there were incentives given to them, and they were like the top chosen ones were asked that if they wanted to go forward, the university will give them seed funding and also support. So these are again opportunities, and we try to bring in that innovation culture of thinking differently and research. So the message is aspire, create, learn, and evolve. So aspire for a better, maybe, opportunity, maybe to provide a better environment, to create something new, and then learn from the experience, evolve by doing all this. Now, having said this, again, these are some things which we have done differently in the faculty development paradigm. So there was a workshop which we did, and I conceived this storytelling in medical education. Now, stories are very powerful tool. So we did this, and this workshop was again a good success. So we started and we did this. These are some of the slides and snippets I'm just sharing. So this was again something which we tried to do. And I believe that stories can be shared in any other field as well. Of course, medicine is one field, but any other field. And we've been actually listening to stories right from childhood because stories are believable. They provide a context. They engage learners. They have rapt attention. They promote memory. And then they also lead people to develop a professional identity, and they promote empathy. And that's the reason, ladies and gentlemen, stories are important. And if you remember, I started with the story, a story which was mine. Again, please remember, it should be a story where you can relate to. A story probably from your experience, from somebody else's experience who you have seen would be much better. But also a story maybe from the history, maybe from the development phase of something. So that would be something which can make you connect and educate. Stories could be in different ways. You can engage students in paper cases which you develop. You can talk about the history of a subject or a topic. You can talk about ethical dilemmas that they may encounter. You can have, in our context, it's patient memoirs, or you can have guest speakers coming and talking. It could be narratives. It could be done in different ways. And now technology is there. Now there is digital storytelling as well, with animations and other things if it's possible. So again, stories can be brought in. I'm not saying everything to be converted to story, but then you can bring in where required, and this can also help us. Let me also show recently what we did. We were approached, and I was approached for a webinar, 1 or 2, on research methodology. I said 1 or 2 would be probably not doing justice, so let's try and do 8. And with a lot of deliberations and things like that, we finally zeroed on 8, and it was agreed upon. It was a series. Probably this was the first time we were trying it, but let me tell you, today is the 9th one on popular demand. Tonight at 8 p.m., we are doing the 9th one on qualitative research. Every webinar has been very, very well taken, and everybody has enjoyed it. There have been good feedback. We have a lot of interactions. So we did, only on basics of research methodology, a series of 8 lectures, 8 webinars spread over 1.5 hours on Mondays and Thursdays. And we had a very good experience. Please let me also tell you that these also enrich us, because when we interact, we also learn. When we try to solve queries, we learn. So again, the message is, when you're doing something, when you learn from it, when you evolve, please share. Please share, because so that others also learn from it, they also adopt, and then they emulate. They emulate you so that they can also put good practices in place. So that's important as well. I'll take again one more story, and I'll tell you about this particular. I'm not sure how many of you have known about this and have heard of this or read this book. I am not a very patient person when it comes to reading novels and books. You ask me to read things on internet, things in newspaper, magazines. I can do it. I can do whole day. I can do it for days. But I cannot have the patience to read novels. Very few I have read till now in my life. My daughter made me read this when she got it from her library in the school. This is Brindle by Andrew Clements. This talks about a boy called Nicholas, Nick for short, who actually kind of very intelligent boy, but he doesn't take kindly when the teacher, Mrs. Granger, is very, very strict, and she wants total discipline in the class. And he decides to disrupt the class by his intelligence. And he keeps creating nuisance. One fine day, he asked the teacher, English teacher, how did these words come about? And then she says, in the dictionary. And she says, why don't you do an essay? And this is your assignment. And when he does that, and he comes up and he found that there are words added because people actually use them and people added them. And that became a part of dictionary and vocabulary. The teacher further, challenged him that probably you could do it. And then he learns from that, and he decides to create a nuisance, and he starts calling a pen as a frindle, and he creates a gang of his friends, and they all do that. To punish them, the teacher tries to give them punishment to stay over after the college to school, but then it backfires because everybody starts doing, and then it's getting out of hand. Finally, the teacher recognizes his potential and his skills, and she says, okay, I challenge you, go ahead and do it. And then this Nick follows it, and at the end of a few years, Nick gets a post saying that if you're reading this letter, it means that the word frindle has been added to the dictionary, and he gets a dictionary. He writes a letter back. He knew that this was his teacher's job, and so he writes a letter back, and he goes and meets his teacher, Mrs. Granger, with the pen, and he says that this is something which belongs to you, and this you may call by whatever name that you may. I'm just trying to say that teachers also need to understand sometimes that there are children or there are students who might be different, but they might be actually creative. They might be very intelligent. What we need to do is need to understand and inspire them. And that's something I'm sure that most of us know. But this is something which we have to understand. Just to go back, stories are very powerful because they transport us into other people's world. But in doing that, they change the way that our brain works and potentially change our brain chemistry. And that's what it means to be a social creature. Again, Steve Jobs said, the most powerful person in the world is a storyteller. And he was talking in context of business stories. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda for an entire generation that is to come. So again, I tell you, let's remember that bring in stories where appropriate. Till now, I have given you a few key messages before we move further. I told you about the belief. I told you aspire, create, learn, and evolve. And then once you do that, share. Share it with the others. Inspire people and be a role model. Now let's take a few again. Let's try to look at whatever is available to you. And whenever we look around, there will be problems. We need to identify. And this is a story from cholera. This hand pump, some of you might know, this is a hand pump which was the cause for the contaminated water. And this is much before the virus, the Vibrio cholera, the bacteria, Vibrio cholera bacilli was actually discovered, not virus. So Vibrio cholera was discovered. And just by putting things together and two and two together, by mapping it out, John Snow actually said that this hand pump probably was the cause. And this, he made sure that he convinced the authorities and he removed the handle of the hand pump, which brought the cholera cases down in London. And this was late 1800s, 1850s. Again, current time, we are reminded of 1918 flu epidemic or pandemic which spread. We learn from history, we learn from whatever was done at that time, and some stories can teach us much better. Coming to teachers, now it's our job not just to teach, but to be a leader. Leading from the classroom, leading through modeling and coaching, leading groups and teams in small groups, the team that we had, the team that we are given probably as a mentor. Leading to increase teachers' voice and influence. How? By showing that what works, by showing by our work, and by creating a evidence. Leading to professionalized teaching by again experimenting and documenting and sharing, and leading to connect to a larger community and the world. And this is what is teacher leadership. I'll move on to the next segment, but if there are anything that you want me to pause and explain, maybe clarify, I would be happy to before I move on to the next segment.
You are
Is there
free
any?
to put it in the chat box. They can put it in the chat box, and we can.
Yeah, if there is anything.
Anything, if anyone wants to know, they can put it in the chat box, and I will definitely ask.
Sure. Is there anything, ma'am?
Nobody has actually put in any question, but
So let's move on. So, okay, you have something? Yes. So shall we move on?
Yes, we should move on, sir.
Okay, so we'll go into a little bit of education research. I talked about research in general. Now there are possibilities within our own work and education. There are opportunities. So let me just first tell you what education research is. Now I also happen to be in one of the things known as education and medical education. Now we build capacity by doing faculty development, and I have been initiated into this right in the year 2008. So I have been reaping the benefits of being an early bird. So we do a lot of things, we try to do different things, and then we also try to share it with others, and we try to do faculty development, maybe even publish. And we also have a program, Premier Fellowship program, where two of the centers in India I go to as faculty facilitator, and I'm fortunate to be doing that. So scientific field of study that examines education, learning processes, and the human attributes, interactions, organizations, and institutions that shape the educational outcomes. Now, basically, we are trying to, seek to describe the, the understanding of the whole process of education. So we are trying to look at, how learning takes place throughout a person's life, and how formal and informal contexts of education affect all forms of learning. And we can do that even in our own settings as well. And that's again possible, because that can improve our education system, and that's important as well. So it embraces the full spectrum of rigorous methods appropriate to the questions being asked. And please remember, the crux of any good research is a research question. So any research is as good as the research question that I put forth, that I pose. Because if I start with a question which is not good enough, I've not put in careful thought into it, I've not done enough of groundwork and literature search, my research will yield me result which may not be as important and as useful and as meticulous. So that's very important for us to do that. And then it also helps us to develop new tools and methods in teaching. This is just to give you an idea. These are the things that we do even as teachers. So we plan, we teach, we assess. As a part of our job, we also assess students, whether it's formative, summative, practical, or workplace based, or whatever. Okay, we administer. Ma'am said that I do a lot of administration. Many of you in your own capacities, you will be doing administration. You will also be doing faculty development in your own ways. So these are some of the things. So when we plan, we have to think of our readiness of the people who we are going to even teach. Then we are also looking at the preparation of our teaching material, the learning resources, the curriculum mapping which has to be done. And all these can actually be areas where we can do educational research. We teach students using different strategies, tools, and thanks to COVID, we are doing lots of these online. I don't think anyone would have imagined a couple of months back that we'll be doing so much of teaching online. And we are now thinking of blended learning, that is online. And then when we open up maybe certain things to be done face to face and in the labs and other things. Okay. So these are the tools, the technology, and interprofessional. As I said, it's very important for us to look at different professions and how we can bring in. Just to give you an example, health. It's not just people from healthcare, but also from other places which can have contribution. Let me tell you an example. We involved the people from architecture department. So we had architects coming in, and we had engineers coming in, and we had a national symposium last year where we talked about how the architecture of a building can have its bearing on health. And we brought in different people. We brought in perspectives from different places so that they could, and then we had a practical exercise where people had to go around certain facilities and look at how certain things could be probably uh, impeding the health of the people. Even things like not even having even ground for walking, the accessibility issues, even lighting issues, and things like that. So these are some of the things where interprofessional comes in. assessment, formative and summative assessment. So again, we can have lots of these things which can be looked at and re-looked at to make it better. And then evaluation of the programs that we run, our leadership, the experiences, and then that can be brought into training. And as I said, faculty development programs themselves can be evaluated. Attitudes can be looked into. Soft skills can be looked in and then developed. And then, if required, we can go with in line with the industry needs. So just to give you an idea again, you can start with questions like, I wonder what is the best way to do this? How can we do this better, whatever is there? Or what would happen if we do something in a different way? So these are some of the things which you can think of in your own spheres. And there are some papers I would like to show you, not just education, but within what we do in our everyday lives. And how can we look at that from the angle of research and look at it and try different things. This is one paper which got published in very reputed journal, Malaria Journal. So this is something like using tabs and giving these to health workers, and they do GIS tag tablets. They go and visit places and houses where the cases were reported, malaria cases, and they do surveillance and they click pictures and they upload and to close the sources for mosquito breeding and things like that. So this was reported. We looked at way back in 2012. We looked at, thanks to the FAMER program, adult learning principles in an online learning faculty development program. How they actually behave and are they conforming to the principles of adult learning. Then we looked at, one of my colleagues, Dr. Nitin Joseph, brought in this problem-based learning in medical education. And then again, we started doing that in my department. We put in place for the 4th semester and the 6th semester students. And then we thought, okay, let's share this, whatever has been our experience. And now the Medical Council of India is talking about these things. So that's what we have to think of things from a different angle. And this was published in 2015. We started the work much earlier. Again, encouraging students to publish. This is a review paper. The student Savandika, who passed out from our institution, belongs to Sri Lanka. And when she wrote this paper, before when we started, I told her to write, and then we corresponded even on mails. So she said, I don't know what is a review paper. And I gave her an idea. I shared some papers and we corresponded using WhatsApp and other things. And then she wrote this. And, it's so proud to see that a student can write such things. Then again, thinking of, things which can affect us and how things can be improved. So again, I'm showing you some papers like that. And when it comes to healthcare again, what are the different practices in different places and how that can affect health? So we looked at some of these things as well. So I'm just trying to show you that there are possibilities. Just we need to identify, and we need to even take students maybe to mentor them, to encourage them, and to get into these. I'll talk about a little about teacher identity and teacher as a researcher, and then we'll try to end this, and then we'll discuss. So teacher identity has 3 types. One, the situated identity, depending on the local context and conditions. Then one is my professional identity as a teacher. That means being a good teacher. And then I also, being a person that I am, I have a personal identity. That means outside my institution, my social life. So all these are those 3 different things. It's an ongoing dynamic process. And whatever we do, it also reflects on our profession, it reflects on a person, and definitely has an influence on our sphere, and definitely on the people that we come across, including our students. So it's important for us to understand that. So whether we do things, we have our beliefs, we have our different roles, we reflect, we have a different kind of dialogue with other people. All these things actually define our identity, and we have to be importantly aware of this, because that's how we can be shaped. Now, when we go about thinking of these things, again, little difficult maybe, but let me take you from top to bottom. So basically, we need to look at the ecosystem that we are in. Then we look at how I respond in the classroom and to the learners, and then further to my own self-management I should look into, and then I should look into myself as a teacher. And that can be done by reflective practice, because we have a role as a researcher as well. We need to reflect on that. We need to read and pose a question, review the literature, then determine the research question that we have, think of that, lead, and then convert that into research. This will again determine my practice based on my experience. And this will also impact my teaching and training. So this, in a nutshell, basically this is a triangle. So we need to actually get into this kind of a domain as well. Many a times, many of us have these thoughts, but we don't convert it into a research or a scholarship, what the Western world calls it. And scholarship is nothing, but basically you are putting it in public domain and publishing it and sharing with peers and peer reviewed, so that becomes scholarship. So basically, just to give you an idea, you start with recognizing the problem, formulating a question, researching what is available in the literature, what is already there, what others have done, and then designing your own research study, methods to do that. If at all you have to do ethics review, because it's mandatory for us in human research. So ethics review, then you go and implement and gather the data, complete the analysis, evaluate and reflect on research, prepare a report, communicate and share. And that's very important. Communicate to whom? To the other people in the specialty, maybe other people in different forums. So conferences give you a very good platform. You can go share so that people know, and then you publish, because that's important. It becomes peer reviewed, it becomes an evidence, and it becomes also for others to probably try and do that and come out with their own perspectives and findings. So how can we become researchers even in our own classroom? By doing lesson study. That means even if we are talking about just educational research purely, we can look at how we can change a little bit of lesson plans and then observe its impact on students. And I gave you an example, problem-based learning, that we tried out. And we also looked at the perspective of teachers, students, and things like that. We also need to support teachers who are taking part in such kind of research. We need to make it easy so that these teachers who are engaging with research evidence, they also are given a platform where they can actually get access to research, and they also can try it out, so that the whole school or whole department can get involved. Then we need to keep track of the impact, so that you know what works and what doesn't. And this has to be done objectively by measurements and by setting your objectives, and then looking at what is your end result, comparing the things, and then coming it and evaluating it in a proper way. Again, encourage people who are having extra interest, or they are enrolled for higher degrees or maybe some additional qualifications. Encourage them to share their findings across your department, your schools, your colleges, and encourage also, if possible, to use the video, because when I get recorded, and many a times I record myself on the audio or the video just to listen to myself later, to make myself better the next time I deliver. And that's again important. So that's about those perspectives. Now, just to give you a few tips on certain things, we have heard these things. First impression is the last impression. How many of you agree? Is that right?
Absolutely.
First,
Absolutely.
good, ma'am. But if that was the case, think of the story I talked about. The boy who was trembling, he could not speak. And today, look at me. So if that was the impression somebody carried, I don't think I would have got opportunity. So please remember, first impression is the last impression till the impression lasts, or it's the last meeting. So of course it does matter. But what I also learned during my interaction around about a decade back with Shiv Khera, he said, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So of course it's important. And that's why when we need to certain things which are important, which are high stake, we need to make that first impression very, thoughtfully, and make that first impression the best impression. Yes, it's important, but it should not be the lasting impression forever. Next, practice makes it perfect. I'm sure that many of us will agree, right? what do what do people feel? Practice makes it perfect,
Definitely.
right? Yes. So yes, practice makes it perfect. But wait a minute. What if I start practicing the wrong way and I keep practicing 10, 20, 100 times? Does that make me perfect? So again, what Shiv Khera said, and this is etched on my mind, practice makes it permanent. So you need to do it properly, the right way. Yes, you will be perfect only if you do it the right way. But please remember, more than that, practice makes it permanent. So we need to do it the right way. So whatever we do, if it's wrong, it will become permanent. If it's right, of course, it will be perfect. So please remember that. And of course, this is one of his quotable quotes. Winners don't do different things. They do things differently. Again, sharing wisdom. I've been talking about sharing. One of my professors used to say, make fresh mistakes. Don't make the mistakes which have already been done by others. Make fresh mistakes. And there's another saying which I always love to quote in many of my talks. Wise is a man who learns from his mistake, but wiser is a man who learns from others' mistakes. And Dr. R.P. Pai, who's shown here, he used to tell us, make fresh mistakes. He was my postgraduate teacher. He's from the same specialty, a very qualified man with multiple degrees and things like that. So please remember, we have lots of roles. People believe we have different identities, and we also do a lot of things, including research. But when we mentor, a few things we need to remember. We need to listen, not just listen to what just has been said, but many a times unsaid also. So, and interpret what was heard, what we have seen, assess what was heard, react to what was heard in a proper way, and give them opportunities, because I hear and I forget. I see and I remember, and I do and I understand. This is a Chinese proverb. So we need to understand that we need to not have conflict with our students, with our colleagues. And here I'm talking more in terms of students and mentees. We need to join together so that we can solve problems. So that's something which is possible. And I'll just give you a few tips when we mentor students, because many of us do that. And we need to understand that there has to be a regular interaction. We need to set aside a regular time, and we need to communicate, and we have to establish that trust. Now, trust cannot be established by saying that you need to trust me, I will trust you. But many other things that we do as a part of whatever we are doing in the course of time, in the course of our interactions, by actions and things like that. And then we need to thoughtfully give the feedback to the candidate, a constructive and a candid feedback, so that the candidate can understand and implement it, and then provide developmental opportunities to fulfill goals of the students, which are the shared goals. But it has to be brought up by discussion, and try to look at what additional learning opportunities or resources could we add to enhance that learning experience. And as I showed you, a few things which we could do within the system itself. To be an effective mentor, we need to encourage, we need to analyze. At times, we need to confront if somebody is doing wrong. But at the same time, it's a very delicate thing. You cannot just confront to, make that person feeling dejected or low. But you need to bring it up and give a constructive feedback, communicate effectively, and instill confidence. To sum up, teachers can mold the students, their personality, career, and life. Teachers should take up the roles of researcher, mentor, and a leader. So that's what I want to sum up. Any questions before I finally give you the last word? Any questions, anything that you want to ask?
Yes, there is a question for you, sir. Do you
Yes.
think soft skills should be made a part of every curriculum as a compulsory passing subject?
Uh, well, very interesting and very good question. I think my answer is a little carefully weighted question, a weighted answer. The thing is, the moment we make it compulsory and we make it part of curriculum, it becomes a rigmarole. Of course, it should come in some way, definitely. But more than that, it should not become something which जिसको हम ढो रहे हैं. Because what happens is, अरे ये तो करना है क्योंकि करना है, and that's what I don't want it to be. So it should be in such a way where there is something, but at the same time, it should not be just because it's a part of the curriculum and this has to be done and this is to be done and tick marked and then said that yes. Yes, it's important because personality development, soft skills are very important. They are important skills in life. So we need to, but we have to be careful that not to make it in such a way that people are kind of turned away from this or they take it as a burden और कि नहीं चलो ये तो है करना है कर लेते हैं या even from the point of view of the people who are facilitating it should not become that yes it's there चलो ये खत्म करते हैं yes ma'am any other
हाँ, सीखना जरूरी है, ये हमें लगता है.
yes ma'am
One must learn the subject, and rather than just getting it pass pass on the mark sheet or something. That is
yes
more
ma'am
important. Actually, what I was wondering was that there was another question which said that since as undergraduate teachers we do not have access to doing getting PhD students, so yours was a very nice way of telling us that how we really get in the undergraduate students to do small research and things like that. I really appreciate the idea and the way you have done it, sir.
no,
And
thank you ma'am no in fact that's what to tell you this year my department becomes a PG department we've been in existence for so long and that's one of my big achievements as the head of department which I stepped down from in March this year. So after 5 years I can say with satisfaction among other things one of the big achievements is that we've got postgraduate seats but till now we didn't have postgraduate seats in my department but in the entire institution ma'am Kasturba Medical College Bangalore and one of the largest even in the university one department research is from my department from the last so many years and everybody appreciates right from the top university management and we've been able to do it only with undergraduate research and I'm sure that I have shared that that's why in a nutshell because it's possible as I said we just need to look at the possibilities find a way get everybody on board of course there will be challenges I don't deny that there will be fence sitters there will be people waiting for things to go wrong but I'm sure there will be people who will also be with you I know that, ma'am. Of course, this is not the time or the place to discuss all that, but I know that, and I know that. So, shall I continue and complete
yes,
my
yes, you
talk
must.
another
You must.
1 or 2 minutes?
Yeah. Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So, I just wanted to share. This is a picture I wanted to share. Of course, it's a personal thing and personal perspective. So, you see these pictures. That's from my daughter and my family, obviously. So, this girl is now about to be 12 this July, and these are from last couple of years. So she wanted to take part in uh, a cooking competition which she's been doing for last some time and consecutively she's been into that and winning that and this was a forum mall competition which happens in 6 cities and she was the winner for 2018 and 19. Let me tell you she believed and in fact the first time I didn't believe that she could do it and second time she had to do with cooking with fire of course with induction which she has never done at home alone but she was confident and she said we said okay let's give her a chance to do that and she went into prelims and then quarters and then finals and then she did it right is a picture of her when she was I think about couple of 4 years or something and on the rightmost pink she traveled all alone from Indore to Mangalore in 2019 April she wanted to do it right from the time she was 7 year old finally we allowed her she traveled and she traveled from Indore to Mumbai with about 3 or 4 hours of gap in between and change of flight and then she boarded and then she came home in between we had given her a tab which was to just communicate tab with the sim unfortunately after she boarded and switched off from Indore the tab stopped switching on whatever reasons she was smart enough to actually use her air hostess's phone to tell us that she's reached Mumbai and before boarding again at the boarding gate she called us from one of the persons and the counter that I'm boarding now so this is again possible this was a young girl but then we tried doing and giving her opportunity I come back to that belief she believed and we as parents believed and a lot of people actually when we put this up in our status and Facebook A lot of people asked us and they said, did you get scared that she's coming all alone and all that? Of course, she flew as an unaccompanied minor for our satisfaction, but she managed, and that boosted her confidence so much. So again, I come back to what I started with. It's the belief. So belief is the only limitation. The only limits you have are the limits you believe, said by Venn Dyer. Ladies and gentlemen, believe that it can be done. Believe in yourself, believe in the team you have, believe in the student. Thank you so much. I acknowledge the people here, Dr. Ruchi Saxena, Dr. Vandana Upareti, Dr. Seema Singh and the team, Nari Siksha Niketan PG College, Lucknow. The Famerly, that is Famer family, Famerly we coined the term. My teachers, my mentors, and above all my family, the immediate family. That's there, my wife, Dr. Rashmi, my daughter Ira. Thank you for this opportunity.
Sir, there's a question for you. Since you are a person from community medicine, how do you address, now this is for a doctor, how do you address the lack of empathy and sympathy among doctors, which is being increasingly experienced these days? Lack of empathy.
Exactly, ma'am. I totally agree. And that's what I said. So we realized that, see, tali dono haathon se bajti hai, right? So it's not just, of course, people have become, a little more impatient. We don't enjoy the status that doctors enjoyed a few years back, and they are not like on that pedestal, and fine enough, fair enough. But it's also that sometimes people in our fraternity, in our specialty, have also been on the wrong side. They have not taken time to communicate. They've not empathized. So there are things, and there are issues of communication, and that's why, as you said, there are issues. In fact, a lot of these lawsuits are because of a lot of communication gap, and many times these issues also result because of that. So we need to understand that, and that's why we have tried to bring in those modules. Not only that, we are instituting something in our undergraduate curriculum. We also, actually, I didn't project, we are doing a collaborative research on professionalism and things like that. And please understand, many times these are contextual. So what works in the US or Europe, or maybe say some Middle East country, may not work in my context. What works here may not work there. So we need to come out with these things as well. Certain things are common, but there are other things. And that's why we again go back to that research. So we have tried to do that. We have actually done a qualitative pilot study on professionalism. We have instituted program, and many of my students will vouch for it, that we try to teach them right from first year now basics of communication. We talk about certain other things. We talk about empathy. We talk about ethics. We talk about a lot of things. We sensitize them. Of course, the beginning is made, and I think that's very important. Earlier days, we had very good role models, but unfortunately, the role models are a dwindling species now. So we need people to be explicitly told and taught. And then we also need more role models to come up. I hope I've answered that.
Yes, I think the doctors have to come out and communicate. उनको अपने आम जनता से बात करनी चाहिए और उनकी समस्याओं को थोड़ा थोड़ा समझना चाहिए. अपने को एक अलग से नहीं रखना चाहिए. उनको भी साथ में मिलके सारी सोसाइटी के साथ रहना है और काम करना है. तभी वो अगर सोसाइटी की जो प्रॉब्लम्स हैं, जो उनकी हेल्थ इश्यूज हैं, उसको शेयर करेंगे और उनको ट्रीट करेंगे, तभी उनको भी आपस में जो उनके प्रति रिस्पेक्ट है वो उन्हें वापस मिलेगी. हमें
Absolutely,
लगता है,
ma'am. Absolutely.
हाँ, हमें लगता है
नहीं, हो भी रहा है, कुछ हद तक हो रहा है. I'll give you one example. There is one of our cardiologists, Dr. Padmanabh Kamath. He is the head of department now of cardiology. He has started a community initiative, and छोटी सी चीज है मैम, एक उन्होंने WhatsApp ग्रुप बनाया. It's called CAD, coronary artery disease भी कहते हैं, पर उन्होंने बताया है कि कार्डियोलॉजी एट डोर स्टेप्स, और उन्होंने सबको जोड़ लिया, और अब उनका नेटवर्क ऑलमोस्ट पैन इंडिया है. तो उसमें क्या होता है कि अगर इफ देयर इज अ पेशेंट हु कम्स विथ सम काइंड ऑफ हार्ट पेन और चेस्ट पेन और समथिंग, सो ईसीजी होता है. और कई बार जो डॉक्टर्स, ड्यूटी डॉक्टर्स होते हैं और एमबीबीएस डॉक्टर्स होते हैं, इवन दूर दराज इलाकों में, उनको ये क्षमता नहीं होती कि वो ईसीजी को ठीक से समझ पाए, पढ़ पाए और उसको इंटरप्रेट कर पाए. तो इन्होंने इस ग्रुप के माध्यम से ये किया है कि कार्डियोलॉजिस्ट को जोड़ दिया और उनको जोड़ दिया. तो इमीडिएट डायग्नोसिस होता है, और उसके अलावा अगर उनको रेफरल की जरूरत है तो जहां भी वो हैं, रिसेंटली उन्होंने शायद लखनऊ के आसपास किया था, किसी को रेफर किया था बहुत नजदीकी इसमें, तो कहा कि वहां जाइए आप, और ये था अर्ली मॉर्निंग के टाइम पे कभी। तो अब इनके नेटवर्क के थ्रू इवन अभी रिसेंटली कश्मीर के बॉर्डर पे जो सोल्जर्स पोस्टेड है, तो उनके आर्मी किसी डॉक्टर ने ऑफकोर्स ही पोस्टेड इट विदाउट द आइडेंटिटी, तो उन्होंने कहा कि ये अभी रिसेंटली, तो उनको एक अप्रिसिएशन आया। तो दीज आर थिंग्स विच इफ यू लुक अराउंड, एंड ही हैज आल्सो स्टार्टेड अनदर थिंग। बहुत सारे कोस्टल कर्नाटका के बेल्ट पे, सिर्फ मैंगलोर ही नहीं, इन्होंने 100 से ज्यादा ईसीजी मशीन्स डोनेट की हैं by generating crowdfunding and from NGOs and other places, and he has donated it so that cardiology जो है वो better हो सके और ECG हो सके। तो ये again look at this is a doctor who's doing this social service।
हाँ सर, ये तो बहुत ही कमेंडेबल काम है और बहुत ही प्रेजवर्दी है, एंड लॉट ऑफ दीज थिंग्स आर नाउ बीइंग, एज वी एवरीथिंग इज गोइंग डिजिटल, सो वी हैव टेलीमेडिसिन आल्सो गोइंग ऑन, एंड व्हिच इज in this time of this pandemic, it has really helped a lot of patients. बहुत सारे मरीजों की दूर दराज जगहों पे इस टेलीमेडिसिन ने भी बहुत बहुत मदद करी है, और टेलीमेडिसिन सेंटर भी लखनऊ में भी है, और भी जगह होगा, हमें लखनऊ का तो पता है। और आई एम रियली रियली थैंकफुल फॉर टू यू डॉक्टर सर, फॉर गिविंग अस for actually giving us the belief to aspire, to create, to learn, to evolve, and to share our stories, to inspire our students and become a role model. So I think I have really enjoyed your talk, and we have so many good comments for you from all the participants. We have around 130 to 140 participants, and they are really appreciative at the way you have managed the research with the undergraduate students at Manipal, and hopefully this will be a good solution for the teachers that are there in remote places of the state in Uttar Pradesh, or people connected with us from Bihar, from Punjab, and even Rajasthan in this webinar. So they will appreciate the importance of research, and they will also aspire to create and inspire the students. Thank you so much, sir. It was really really wonderful and lovely listening to you and seeing you talk.
Thank you ma'am, thank you so much, it's been a pleasure, and I really hope that अगर इसने मतलब इस टॉक से आपको थोड़ा सा भी कुछ मतलब मिलता है कि you can take it forward, and if you need any time to contact me, please feel free to. Any of the participants can do that. I have shared my details also, so I'll be very happy to. Thank you and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Back to you, Seema.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Ruchi. Now I request Sunita Di to submit the report of 5 days exercise.
Thank you.
Sunita Di?
Audible? सुनाई दे रहा?
Yes, yes, yes.
Hello?
Yes.
सुनाई दे रहा?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, all of you. And first of all, I wish very, very thanks to Professor Animesh Jain for